super common retirement planning question we get is, should I consider drawing down my RSPs or my RIFs in early retirement in order to maximize my CPP benefits? It's a great question. So in this video, I'm going to help you answer that question, but I'm going to do it with a case study, just so you can see some of the nuance to the decision. We'll take a deeper look at that question and we'll compare outcomes at different ages, 95 and 82. We'll see which one saves more tax, which one produces potentially a better outcome kind of from a balance sheet perspective, which one's going to get you more benefits over your lifetime. And the numbers here will probably surprise you. The difference is actually far greater than many people realize. A single decision can potentially increase your total benefits by up to 140%. We're talking real money here. And there's actually a different decision that you need to actually make before you should even be asking this question, so I'll cover that as well. But first, if we haven't ever met, my name's Steve Willems. I'm a practicing certified financial planner and wealth advisor here with the Willems Wealth Planning Group in BC. We started this channel to help you plan for your own retirement, helping you think about how to plan and arrange your investments, your income streams, and ideally pay less tax along the way. So before we dive into the case, as much as we'd like to make this kind of a really black and white situation with right and wrong answers, personal finance and retirement planning just doesn't really always shake out that way. And given how hotly debated this specific area can be, it just goes to show how many different perspectives there are on this single question alone. So we'll try to keep this as simple and pragmatic as possible, just so we can isolate for this single variable and we'll hold everything else static. And hopefully using a case will help you see this firsthand. So let's hop into the case here. Let me introduce you to Aaron and Karen. They're both 60 years old. They live here in BC, and it seems like all of their friends are retiring these days. We're going to keep the balance sheet pretty simple here. We're not going to bring in any corporations or trusts or anything like that. Let's just say they've got $1.4 million saved between them in RRSPs. Let's say it's evenly split. They've got $1 million house, nothing else. They're both eligible for CPP. They got the letter in the mail recently, and because they've both worked during their careers, it looks like they'll expect about 90% of the maximum benefit should they choose to wait until age 65. Now, likewise, they've been in Canada their whole lives, so they should also expect a full OAS entitlement also at the age of 65. Now, as always, a big variable is spending. Now, they figured that once they no longer needed to save, and because their mortgage had been paid off a couple of years earlier, they figured they could make do with about $6,000 a month of net after-tax spending money in retirement. Again, note, I'm starting here with what they figured they would need, and we'll figure out later how to get them that income, if it's even possible. But the order of operations is important here. Many will go the other way, right? It'll fluctuate, whereby their spending is totally variable based on, whatever ends up kind of coming in, accidental almost, instead of thoughtfully targeting a specific amount. So in this exercise, again, we'll want to isolate as much as we can, just so we can get really clear on the CPP question of if we should, in fact, draw down the RRSPs early and delay CPP. So we'll keep the spending amount the exact same in each of these two scenarios. Now, a few important assumptions. So we're obviously going to be comparing the drawdown of a fully taxable balance sheet asset, these RRSPs. So for simplicity, we'll assume Aaron and Karen are looking at doing this at either age 60, like many of you do, or if they can afford to wait. Either to age 65 or maybe even 70. They don't have any other significant sources of incomes or pensions. There's no helicopter money here. And because one of the two of them has a 25% chance of living all the way out to age 95, kind of actuarially, we'll want to see what the outcome might look like all the way that far out, but we'll also want to see it closer to their actual life expectancy, or maybe even a little bit earlier on, so say age 82. And we're going to run this scenario at a conservative 5% rate of return. So as they think about this decision, there are at least 3 factors to consider. Now, factor 1 is that delaying CPP will maximize those benefits. So for every year that you delay past age 65, your monthly benefit will increase by 8.4% per year, kind of maxing out at a total benefit increase of 42% higher if you delay out to age 70. And of course, if you draw early, those benefits are reduced at 0.6% per month or 7.2% per year for a maximum benefit reduction of about 36% at age 60. And that math is pretty well understood by most people planning for retirement these days. Now, the nuance here is that these values don't include the wage inflation adjustment. Now, the CPP maximum benefit is always increased before you draw it based on what's called the AIW, or average industrial wage. Now, historically, that rate has been higher than CPI, or general inflation. So back of the napkin, and just keeping this simple, if you delay a single year from age 65 to age 66, you'll get that 8.4% bump, but you'll also get a wage inflation bump on that future benefit, whatever that percentage was for that year. So say 2% for wage inflation, when maybe CPI is running at 1.5%, you would get the 2% bump plus the 8.4%, so 10.4% combined. Now that wage inflation piece is super important, especially as we've seen the last few years. So when we're running this in our planning software, here's what that looks like. The blue line is the CPP at age 60, discounted down, and then OAS obviously starting up at age 65. And then the purple line delays them both to age 65 with the adjusted values kind of running up at that time. So that's factor one to think about. Now, factor two would be the tax efficiency of your RSP withdrawals. In your 60s, especially before you start taking CPP and OAS, your income may be lower, meaning that you'll be in a lower tax bracket, especially if you can spread your income out between two spouses. So this could make it actually a good time to withdraw from your RSPs at a lower tax rate. But you have to balance that against the need to preserve your RRSP balance for the long term. You can't just fully drain that out. The real question is, would drawing from your RRSPs now save you from paying higher taxes later in life when those forced withdrawals would be starting up in the year that you turn 71. Now, factor three is just looking at the total lifetime tax paid. This is where the decision can get tricky. If you start CPP early and you leave your RSPs intact, you may preserve that savings longer, but you might face a larger tax bill later on when mandatory RIF withdrawals actually start to begin. On the other hand, if you withdraw early from your RSPs and delay CPP, you might spread out your tax liability over time, possibly reducing your total lifetime tax bill. It's all about kind of finding that sweet spot between minimizing taxes now versus later. So each of these factors will interact with each other in peculiar ways, but let's show, not tell. So let's get back to that case with Aaron and Karen. So here we see their base plan, which would be turning CPP on right away here at age 60 with those CPP benefit reductions applied. So because CPP is coming in, we see here that we don't actually need to draw as much from the RRSPs, right? Here at age 65, their OAS is going to kick in, which is going to reduce down their RRSP draws even further. Now, we'll often kind of model a retirement spending smile, kind of a slow reduction of that discretionary spending. We'll often see in the data support, so we see their spending kind of modestly dropping over here. Now, a few key takeaways. First, we see this plan fundamentally works, right? There's enough money at the end. The graph here, looks nice. Aaron and Karen felt pretty good. It wasn't entirely surprising, right? They had tested this a few times in the years leading up to this moment, but it still felt good to have it verified. Now, what they hadn't tested was this single decision of how to handle CPP. So let's take a look at a few other metrics. So here we see the total amount of personal taxes they'll pay over their lifetime. It's expected to be about $448,053. Now again, we'll keep this simple, right? We didn't include any medical expense credits, any charitable donations that we often see, any disability tax credits, no fancy tax footwork here, just kind of a raw tax calculation. Now, the other metric to observe is the total estate net of any taxes on the second of them to pass. So that's a clean $0 here. So no estate tax problem in this situation where they're taking CPP early at age 60. Now we can also see here how much CPP and OAS they received over their lifetime, assuming they live all the way out to 95 years old. It's just shy of $2 million, $1,976,540 to be precise. That's a massive amount of money, probably more than you might have otherwise expected. And of course, we can look at both of these numbers, the total lifetime personal tax bill and the total after-tax kind of estate value at age 82 instead of age 95. And when we do that, here's what we see. We've gone to a point where there's still an estate tax of about $98,000, not that bad. Government benefits, though, have been reduced by age 82, down from just about $2 million down to just shy of $1 million. And that shouldn't be too surprising in this scenario. Aaron and Karen, the second of them, passed away 13 years earlier. So that's if we take CPP early. So what about the other option? Let's just adjust this to instead look at delaying CPP out to age 70. So we'll still turn OAS on at age 65, though that could technically also potentially be delayed. But again, we'll want to isolate as few variables here as possible, just so we can get a really clear kind of line of sight into this decision. Now, when we look at the plan, we can clearly see that by delaying their pension income, obviously we have much higher RRSP draws, and we've got a fund to make this happen. So on the balance sheet, we see the effect of this drawdown, right? It's kind of a swooping effect as opposed to it kind of chugging up and to the right. But then over here, we see that CPP income kind of starting up meaningfully higher than before. So let's take a look at the metrics on this new case. So first, let's look at the total lifetime tax paid, assuming they live out to age 95 again. That's higher, $643,643. So more tax due than if they take CPP early at age 60. Now, the net after-tax estate value left to their beneficiaries is another number that we'll want to look at. If they make it out to age 95, that's expected to be $5.327 million. Now, we can adjust that down. Instead of age 95, let's look at it at age 82. The lifetime personal tax bill would be lower, $431,246. At the same time, their net after-tax estate value would also be lower, $3.259 million. But here's the craziest number. If they delay taking CPP till age 70, they still take OAS at 65, and then they live to 95 years old, they're going to be receiving about $3 million of lifetime government benefits by their age 95. And if they only made it to age 82, that's going to be still an impressive amount, about $1.34 million. So that's a lot of numbers. And it's hard to know which of that all made sense or which actually had the better outcome. So let's compare them side by side to see how this plays out. Again, just a reminder, the lifetime expenses we're holding constant here. So we're not having them spend more or less in any of these scenarios. It's identical. So if Aaron and Karen happen to live till age 95, and they also decided to delay CPP to age 70, it results in meaningfully more government benefits. It results in a modest estate tax bill and a superior net after-tax estate value, even if it meant paying a little bit more tax during their lifetimes. If they don't make it to age 95, and the second of them passes at age 82, which statistically is not as likely, then it's going to be a little bit more nuanced. At age 82, the decision to delay CPP to 70 still results in a higher amount of total benefits received. And even here, we're talking about a $300,000 difference on the decision to delay from age 60 to 70. The expected estate tax bill is largely similar, kind of across all three of these scenarios, but those extra government benefits show up down here with a higher after-tax estate value if they deferred CPP till age 70. It's an extra $200,000 difference for that 10-year delay, which admittedly kind of maybe is a big number, maybe not, given that we're kind of factoring this all out maybe 20 years into the future. So each of these metrics plays an important role in this decision, right? The total lifetime tax liability is important, right? Because if we end up paying kind of more taxes over our lifetime to produce the same amount of spendable income, we maybe aren't helping ourselves that much. Well, in this case, if Aaron and Karen chose to delay, they are going to be paying a little bit more in tax along the way, but the amount of government benefits that they're securing makes it worth it. And the net estate tax value at death, while we typically kind of don't make these decisions based on kind of what gets us the biggest number 35 years from now, it's important to see how these decisions have significant compounding effects over time. Another key element has to do with cash flow and just quality of life, right? The predictability of retirement cash flow is a key soft issue here. So while delaying CPP may result in a lower withdrawal rate later on, the question for Aaron and Karen is, can they sustain their standard of living until then, right? Ultimately, this actually comes down to kind of flexibility and even risk tolerance, right? Because I'm showing all of this kind of in a straight line, kind of a smooth return line. Life doesn't move in straight lines. Life moves in cycles. Market returns, inflation, unexpected expenses will all factor into this in real life. And drawing down your assets early, even if you have a secure fallback, does present some risk. I mentioned that there's actually one critical decision to make before you should even be allowed to ask this CPP question, and that's this. Do you have enough to retire comfortably in the first place? Right? Do you have enough? For Aaron and Karen, they did. Now, too many people get caught up kind of optimizing strategies like CPP deferral or RRSP withdrawal strategies without first knowing if they've tested the core engine of their retirement plan. The real starting point is figuring out if your assets can actually cover your essential expenses and your lifestyle for the rest of your life. This means running your numbers, right? Projecting your income, expenses, kind of the unforeseen costs to ensure that you've got a solid foundation in place. We run those numbers all the time for folks. If you haven't done this yet and you're getting close to that retirement and you'd like a hand kind of testing the core of your retirement plan, I'll put a link in the description below for you to grab a time for us to help you get some answers to those questions. Now, if the answer is yes, then you can actually start fine-tuning your strategy, right? Focusing on things like tax efficiency, maybe decumulation timing, when to take CPP. You might even want to start to look at other optimizations, right? Ways to spend more, test for different types of return assumptions, sequence of returns, charitable giving improvements, all of those sorts of things. So the first question shouldn't really be about CPP or RSP withdrawals even at all. It should be about having a plan that can then support you kind of regardless of when you take CPP. That's where you want to start. That's all for now. I hope you found this helpful as you plan for your own retirement. We'll keep these videos coming over the next coming weeks as we help more and more Canadians kind of retire without all the stress. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.